Today's video is sponsored by War Thunder. More from them in a bit. Do we need a PS5 Pro? See, the original PlayStation 5 is a video game console. That means it's a console that plays video games. Now, we don't need a PlayStation 5. It's not a necessity. It's not food or water or air. It's just a box that plays video games. And using my faulty understanding of the transitive property, I have to come to the conclusion that we will not need a PS5 Pro. But will we want one? I don't know. Do you? Do you want one? I don't know if I do. Today I want to talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I want to talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro spec leak that recently happened. I want to talk about why I think Sony is making this box, what Microsoft's response to this box might be, how Sony might market this thing, who this is intended for, what it might be able to do, and what this means for the future of the industry. But before I get into all of that, War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available right now for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Pilot everything from biplanes to armored cars, 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, spanning from the 1920s all the way up to today. Rather than rely on HP points, individual components of the vehicles are modeled to allow for the most authentic experience. If you are a fan of military history, there simply is not a better game out there for you. And whether you're looking for the most realistic vehicle combat simulator or just an arcadey fun time, War Thunder's different modes allow you to play the game the way you want to. So, play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox right now by using my link in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium accounts. We know that the PlayStation 5 Pro is a thing. It leaked a while ago, and these leaks seem pretty legit. And we got even more legit sounding leaks of the specs. And Sony's apparently not happy about this. Let's just assume it's real. The PS5 Pro is real, and it's probably releasing this year. Probably. Some of you are probably thinking, wow, that feels way too soon. The PS5 just released. Why do we need a Pro console so quickly? Well, it's actually... by the end of 2024, it will have been 4 years. So that gives you something to think about. Obviously, many people are going to talk about how there has not been a lot of PlayStation 5 specific exclusives. You know, there's been a lot of cross-gen games, but not a lot of stuff that's really just taking advantage of the PlayStation 5. So releasing Pro hardware, it's a weird move. Okay, let's talk about specs. It's an improvement over the original. A lot of that comes from the GPU, the graphics processing unit, more graphics power being pumped into this thing. Sony's new proprietary solution to upscaling looks kinda cool. It's like something between AMD's FSR and NVIDIA's DLSS. It has a 2 or 3 or 4 times performance boost to ray tracing, depending how you count it, compared to the original PS5, that is. Which isn't saying a lot because the original PS5 was terrible at ray tracing, but still, that's an improvement. This also suggests that there will be some significant improvements to next-gen AMD cards, but I'm not getting into that today. The problem here, though, is that CPU. The CPU is not improving that much, which means that games right now that are limited by the CPU, games that run at specific frame rates because the CPU can't keep up on the PS5, well, those games will not see a significant improvement to their frame rates on the PS5 Pro. Digital Foundry recently caused quite a stir when they suggested that if GTA 6 runs at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 5, it will run at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Gasp. It's a mixed bag between better graphics, but not significantly better, but better frame rates, but like not all the time. I do not want to sensationalize this. This is not the greatest thing ever. This is not the worst thing ever. It is a Pro console, a Pro PlayStation 5. Some of you will find it appealing, some of you won't. But I gotta ask, who is this for? A few months ago, we were hearing that Sony was going to try marketing this as an 8K console, something that would have never worked out considering how low of adoption 8K TVs have had. The reason teraflops have become so important to marketing in the past few years is because it's just an easy way to sell these things. You tell people, hey, this box has more teraflops than that box, so it's better. And teraflops aren't really a form of measurement used beyond game console marketing most of the time. The average console gamer is not going to care about memory bandwidth or IO, RAM, all those things that come from the computer world because it's scary. A lot of what makes the PlayStation 5 Pro different from the PlayStation 5, well, it's stuff that mostly PC users would care about. A lot of this is stuff that would be interesting if you were moving from one graphics card to another, but this isn't stuff that's going to appeal to the guy that just wants to play Madden or Call of Duty or Fortnite. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely a hardcore PlayStation fan group out there, maybe a few million people who would be willing to have the best possible console experience. But a vast majority of PlayStation owners aren't going to care. During the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, the mid-generation refreshes made a lot of sense because the original boxes were underpowered. Few people would argue that the PS5 and Series X are underpowered, maybe underutilized. And if they would argue that they are underpowered, they would say that stems from the CPU, the thing that's not really getting improved that much on this PlayStation 5 Pro. But with that said, I still think this is going to sell very, very well. So the original PlayStation 4 Pro was marketed as a 4K game console, but it really wasn't that. I mean, it had a checkerboard upscaling solution that allowed this machine to play games at a lower internal resolution and to output it as, well, fake 4K. But you think most people buying the PS4 Pro knew that? Sure, on the gaming forums, this is what all the console users were talking about. But at a Best Buy, at a Walmart, when somebody's buying a gift for their kid, they probably weren't so concerned with the difference of native and output resolution. I'm sure more than a few people who considered themselves technically savvy saw that this was a 4K PlayStation, understood they had a 4K TV, and just thought, well, that's how it works. I better buy this one. You don't have to woo people over with clock speeds and number of compute units. So what is the big selling point of the PlayStation 5 Pro? Well, it's GTA 6. That's it. So right now, a lot of analysts out there have huge hopes for the next installment in Rockstar's open world series. Not necessarily huge hopes that it's going to be the best game ever made, but hopes that it's going to be the best selling game ever made. This might be a bit overly optimistic. I don't think we should expect GTA to single-handedly save a game industry in decline, but the last GTA did sell a lot of copies. Yeah, they double and triple and quadruple dipped on this thing, but even still, that's a lot of units. GTA is one of those games that just seems to appeal to a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to go out and buy game consoles just for this game. Again, when you get stuck in this gaming community bubble, it's easy to forget not everybody has moved on to the new hardware. There are tens of millions of people who are still playing on their original PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, simply waiting for a game like GTA 6 to bring them into the new generation. People who aren't concerned about console wars or specs, acquisitions, or anything in between. People who simply want to play GTA 6 when it releases. And when that happens, they're going to go onto Google and they're going to type in the words, what is the best way to play GTA 6? And the answer will be the PlayStation 5 Pro. Remember, this game is not launching on the PC, so it would actually be the PlayStation 5 Pro. And for people that want the best experience, they'll go for that. The marketing strategy for the PlayStation 5 Pro will just be, it's the world's most powerful console. And that's all it needs to be. Of course, many won't be willing to pay the $499 or $599 that this thing costs. And for those people, I'm sure Sony has a plan. Right now, it's weird to see, but the PlayStation 5 Slim without a disc drive is selling for $399 with Spider-Man 2 included. Now, if you consider Spider-Man 2 to be a $70 game, which it often retails for, this means they're kind of selling the PlayStation 5 for $329. That is less than a 1TB Xbox Series S sells for. It is hard to imagine that Microsoft would just let this happen, let Sony release this PS5 Pro and have nothing to counter it, but that seems to be their plan. Yes, I know a developer kit has been certified in South Korea, but that could be for a number of things, including the all-digital Xbox Series X revision, which is not a Pro console. It does sound like the Xbox handheld is getting closer to release, but that could be a next generation machine. So yeah, I think that's it. I think the reason the PlayStation 5 Pro exists is for, ironically, the casuals. A group of people who are just late to the party and want to have what they feel is probably the best possible way to experience GTA. With all that said, with all that out of the way, I do want to talk about how I personally, in my opinion, subjectively feel about this box. If I were in charge of designing the PlayStation 5 Pro, I don't know why I would be, I would say, hey, let's not focus on this GPU. Let's give it a small boost, let the upscaling and new AMD technologies do all the heavy lifting, but let's really improve that CPU just to make sure we can hit those 60 FPS targets. Allow developers, tell developers, try to hit 60 FPS, lower the resolution if you need to. But that's not how consoles really work. That's like a PC. That's what you would want out of a PC. If you pulled all the PlayStation 5 users out there, all the people who play the Maddens and the Call of Duties and the Apexes and the Fortnites and everything in between, and you asked them, would you rather have a game that looks absolutely gorgeous and runs at 30 FPS, or a game that just looks okay and runs at 60 FPS? Now, I'm sure many of you here watching this video would say 60 FPS, of course. But remember, when we're talking about people outside the gaming core community, when we're talking about millions of people who don't even know what the letters FPS stands for, they're probably gonna pick just better looking games. To me, that is a shame, but I get it. I'm not the target demographic for this thing. With all that said, let's not jump to the conclusions that the PS5 Pro is somehow going to be a 30 FPS machine. I've been seeing this a lot. The PS5 Pro is a 30 FPS console. All they said is that if GTA 6 was limited to 30 FPS on the PS5, it wouldn't magically get boosted up to 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro if the CPU was the limiting factor. They did not say that GTA 6 is going to run at 30 FPS. We don't know if GTA 6 is going to run at 30 or 60 FPS. I know some people have suggested that there's some Rockstar art director or something who said it was targeting 60. I don't know if that's true. I think it would make a lot of sense for Rockstar and Take-Two to release the game at 30 FPS. I don't want them to, but they almost definitely will. You have the 30 FPS release for current gen machines in 2025, re-release the game in 2026 on PC, and then re-release the game again at 60 FPS on next gen consoles in 2027-2028. Giving the PS5 Pro anything that remotely resembles a next-gen update right out of the gate in 2025, well, that would be eating into Take-Two's profits, and it would be unusual to expect that, especially since for most people, 30 versus 60 on GTA 6 isn't gonna be a deal breaker. For you, it might be, but again, most people. For the millions of players who have not upgraded to the current gen consoles, this is not a deal breaker. From what I can tell, there are only 4 games that are stuck at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 5. Well, kind of. There are tons of games that were made for the PlayStation 4 or previous consoles that never saw updates to get, 60 FPS. But for games specifically developed for the PlayStation 5, there's only a few that are stuck at 30 FPS. This includes Dragon's Dogma 2, Gotham Knights, The Medium, and The Quarry. It's not like there's some plague that all the games releasing on the PlayStation 5 are 30 FPS, but let's hope that doesn't become the case. Maybe the CPU isn't strong enough to manage next-gen engines. Maybe consumers are apathetic towards this entire debate, and 30 FPS allows publishers to market games more easily. After all, the games will look better. They might allow for more lived-in worlds. It could just be that the nature of consoles, of console gaming, of appealing to this broad demographic, well, that just means that games are going to eventually run on 30 FPS on consoles by the end of any generation. Not for whether I'm going to actually personally buy this thing. I don't know. Look, a lot of the concerns about 30 FPS, that really comes down to AAA games. You know, will AAA games not be bottlenecked by that CPU? When it comes to the kind of games that I mostly play, indie and AA stuff, well, that's where the PS5 Pro should probably shine the best. You know, if you want to get 120 FPS consistently, maybe this is the way it's gonna happen. I also can hope that maybe that improved ray tracing will manifest into something more significant than better reflections. On PC, I love path tracing visuals. I love the way that light reflects and reacts and absorbs into an environment. And I've always felt that it's a huge shame that current gen consoles marketed ray tracing as a feature without being able to show off why it's worthwhile in the first place. Sure, even on PC for a while there, ray tracing was seen as unnecessarily expensive, costing way too much performance for minimal visual fidelity gains. But with solutions like DLSS 3, we've gotten around some of those frame rate concerns. And on PC, we've had path tracing tech demos that look absolutely incredible. Quake 2 RTX, Minecraft RTX. These were games that had simple textures, simple lighting, and low geometry counts, making them perfect for path tracing. These won't be coming to the PlayStation 5 Pro because, well, Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, Quake is also owned by Microsoft, and RTX is an NVIDIA thing. The PS5 chips provided by AMD will need a new tech demo of sorts. Maybe we'll get a new Astrobot game that's fully path traced. Maybe we'll see a classic PlayStation 1 game like Twisted Metal, now with path traced lighting. As exciting as all that is, I can't ignore the fact that ray tracing in general has almost become not obsolete, but a bit more unnecessary than it used to be. With Unreal Engine's software solution to ray tracing, you know, Lumen, it achieves roughly the same results, but it's so much more efficient when it comes to performance. And because of that, many, including myself, don't find ray tracing quite as exciting as it used to be, just because we know that developers could have used something other than a proprietary engine, gotten similar results, and doubled the frame rate. Okay, I gotta mention this just because I know somebody's going to bring it up. You can use ray tracing, and people often do, with Lumen, and it does help the final results, but I mean, on game consoles, don't really expect that too frequently. It's interesting to consider that Sony could patch older games to take advantage of, you know, better ray tracing, but I don't think third parties will care as much. Don't expect too many studios to explicitly target the PS5 Pro. I mean, it won't sell nearly as well as the original, and if it doesn't sell that well at all, it would be a waste of resources to try and create a completely different build just to accommodate a few users that aren't paying any more money. Most of the benefits you'll see will probably come from unlocked frame rates and dynamic resolutions, stuff that doesn't cost the developer any time or money. We're hearing that the teraflops of the GPU are like 3 times the number that was found in the original PS5. But that's not the full story, obviously. I guess even the expectation internally is just a 40% performance increase, which isn't bad, but it's not incredible. For games that consistently slip below that 60 or 120 mark and are trying to hit it with dynamic frame rates, well, maybe finally they'll be able to hit that. Again, if they weren't limited by the CPU. A lot of caveats and asterisks that come with this console, right? A lot. There's no clear marketing strategy. There's no clear audience. The timing feels just kind of off, and especially with Microsoft skipping a mid-generation refresh, everybody's going to be asking, why? Why is Sony doing this? Is this just a GTA 6 machine? Maybe. Because it's hard to imagine who this is specifically going to appeal to otherwise. Yes, the hardcore PlayStation fans, the hardcore console fans, I'm sure many will be more than willing to buy this thing on launch day. But beyond them, I don't know. So, do we need a PlayStation 5 Pro? Like I said, no, we don't. And most people really don't even want a PlayStation 5 Pro. The industry probably doesn't need a PlayStation 5 Pro, and Sony probably doesn't need a PlayStation 5 Pro. Given sales figures, we can tell that Sony has conclusively won this console generation, right? Adding yet another box seems like overkill, but I don't know. Maybe they were expecting Microsoft to strike back. Maybe Sony just expected Microsoft would have its own mid-gen refresh and got caught off guard when they didn't drop it. Doesn't really matter, because whether we want or need the PS5 Pro, it's a thing. It's a thing that exists. Huge thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox right now by using my link in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium accounts. Thank you to all my channel members, including Modest Ghost, Phantom 640, Mike, Sam David, Zev Zamzy, A Typical Pine Tree, PlayStation Fan Club, Salt and Pep, I Am a Fish, Richard M. Nixon, Why Am I Here? Joel, Wait the Dog, Cosmic Ram, YY, Bongo Cat.